Welcome to Clarity and Purpose. Our world is full of people who are overworked and overwhelmed. They lose focus on what matters, struggle to find a vision for the future, and lose time with those they love. We help businesses and their teams clearly understand their purpose and help them communicate more effectively. I'm your host, James Thorne, and I'm joined by my co-host, Jake Jordan. Hey, Jake.
Hey, James.
Hey, man, what if we have to wear masks for the rest of our lives?
Ooh, what if we have to stay in our house, like for real, from now on?
What if this is truly the end of the world?
What if it's a dream? What if this isn't real? We're just dreaming about this.
So we deal with what ifs all the time, don't we?
That's right. We think in that way. You know, what if we didn't have to shoot this so late at night? What if we could have done that earlier?
What if we planned better?
Yeah, that's right. What ifs are real?
Man. Yeah, I deal with the business a lot. Like, what if we can't make payroll? What if we lose our big client? What if, that's constant things go through my head. And that's what today's episode is about.
Yeah, because in business, you do deal with a lot of what ifs because we're just people, right? We're just dealing with things that come our way. It's like, what if this marketing campaign is horrible? What if, the people don't like anything we have to say? We have to close up shop. What if we do really, really good and we need to hire 3 new people in 3 months? Like there's good what ifs and bad what ifs, but there's ways to deal with it.
Yeah. And what you'll find out today in today's episode is really look for that. What if I don't step into that thing that I really want to do? Or what if I do step into it? What does that really look like? So I'm really excited. You're going to love this interview with Chris Graebe. He's CEO of Startup Camp. So without further ado, let's introduce our guest like we do every week. He is a husband, dad, faith leader, speaker, and entrepreneur. He first hit the scene in the early 2000s as a cast member on MTV's Road Rules. He led one of the campuses as a pastor for Life Church, one of the largest campuses in America, and he is currently the CEO of Startup Camp, which is the first complete platform for new angel investors. He also has a life brand with his wife called One Life. Together, they've been busy starting multiple businesses, having 5 children, traveling the globe, and serving for over 13 years in ministry. This is my friend, Chris Graebe. Oh, what's up, man?
What is up? I do not look happy in that picture, but I like that intro. I appreciate it. I'm super excited to be here
That's your
today, man.
serious, yeah.
Yeah, that's he's not playing around. Go find a field and look serious.
Oh, I messed something up here. My bad.
There
we go. You're back.
I love it. So, hey, man, excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. We're going to have some fun today.
No, yeah, thank you. Chris, when I say friend, a lot of people say, oh, it's my friend, and they're good acquaintances, but I would consider Chris a good friend of mine. We've spent a lot of time over the past several years in different arenas and industries, and excited to have you on today. So why don't you share some of your past up to this point? I know I mentioned MTV. I mean, that was back when you were a young punk.
My hair wasn't this color.
That's right.
My hair was not
a
this
lot
color,
has changed.
Sure. Yeah.
What are some other things that you've done? I mentioned Life Church. You stepped out from that. So mention some things. Give us a brief little background.
Oh, man, I like to tell people I've lived a Forrest Gump type life. I've kind of done everything you can imagine from college dropout, moving all across the country, met my wife in Nashville, Tennessee, right after I'd got done with MTV, did Road Rules, did one of the Challenge, Battle of the Sexes 2, and then just went on a big adventure, started traveling and speaking, ended up in a local church and kind of did that, on and off, officially as a title on staff at churches for quite a long time, 12, 13 years. And then in the middle of there, I got to be a yo-yo pro where I traveled the world doing school assemblies, England, Australia, Canada, United States. And my kids thought it was really cool then. I'm not as cool now as I was back then when they were younger and I was a yo-yo guy. But yeah, I've always had a deep passion for entrepreneurship and leadership and, just an affinity to take risks and try things. And so a few years ago, after 7 years of working in the largest church in America, it was a fun ride, but it was time for me to make the leap. I had done a lot of entrepreneurial ventures kind of on the side, a lot of side hustles, and had one that really kind of exploded. I did Amazon, I did some private label stuff. This was around kind of the 2015 when even when selling on Amazon was still kind of early. I would say I was in probably the second wave, but man, those people who got in 2012, 2013, like it was the Wild West. You could sell whatever you want, make so much money, but learned a ton, grew a ton, $2 million plus in rev. It was a lot of fun. But out of that, it was like, okay, cool. I early had an opportunity to kind of influence and speak to people through MTV and sharing my faith and whatnot in the world. And God in his grace did not leave me on the stage. He kind of tucked me back in some obscurity for around 12 to 13 years. He said, hey, why don't you go burn the edges off, grow up a little bit. Let's gray up your hair a little bit. Let's give you a couple of kids and settle you down so that when you do come back out to the world and get to share, you've got something worth saying and you don't stick your foot in your mouth. So super thankful for my time at Life Church. Thankful that I got to be under Craig Rochelle and his leadership there. That was really, really a gift. And then I stepped into the world of entrepreneurship as a side hustle. Then it started to explode. So I said, all right, cool. I'm going to get back out there, get on the mic again and start to stretch my entrepreneurial muscles. And that was a lot of fun. And now I lead and I'm the CEO of a company called Startup Camp. It's a venture that helps people get started in angel investing. And it's a wild ride. So again, I'm your Forrest Gump, and I married Jenny.
You did.
So
I knew that was coming. Jenny was coming. If you were going to
Jenny, So that's
5
kids.
That's a quick. So
5 kids. Yeah. Cheers.
I mean, goodness. You still going?
Mm-hmm. Nope. I saw a guy about that, and it's game over, man.
Yeah, that was funny. I want to talk some about your experience stepping out, but also people that you interact with and kind of your perspective of everything. What does that look like today now that you've now you're CEO of a business, and we'll talk some about that. But before that, when you stepped out, what were your perspective when you stepped out? What do you think it was going to look like?
Oh man, for anyone who's ever done it before, it never looks like you think it will, and even like you think you have 3 or 4 contingencies. Like, all right, well, if this thing does this and then this thing does this, then we should be able to. I mean, then we're going to be. But even if 2 of them work, then we should be great. And then you look up and go, none of those worked. Dang it! All right, what do we? And so, it's that weird place is, I think when I took the leap out of Life Church, I mean, I was the campus pastor of one of the largest churches in America, Life Church. And, anyone in ministry or knows the leadership of Craig Rochelle and Life Church, like they just you hit it, man. You punch the golden ticket. And it was interesting in my 7 years of being there, I never saw anybody leave the organization from that seat on the bus. It was a pretty cushy seat, Now, there were a couple people that got reassigned and different things like that, but no one just said, hey, I think I'm done. And they're like, I didn't steal money. My wife and I are in a great relationship. There wasn't like a fallout thing. And so I think everyone just kind of was a little bit of a head scratcher. But for us, it was like, I was 37. I think that's the piece too, is that people go like, well, there's no way I could do this. There's no way I could take this jump. There's no way I could make this move. And I'm like, there's never going to be a perfect time. I mean, I had 5 kids, a mortgage, all the things, but we had some dreams. And luckily, my wife says she's just tethered to me. And so when I jump off the cliff, she automatically gets drugged with me. And she's been such a good trooper about that. But there was something really, really great about being somewhere for 7 years, planting, being a part of that. That was really, really good. I needed that. I'd been kind of willy-nilly all over the place in my younger days, but I really, really appreciate that time. But when you jump like that and you start to write it out, you weigh the options, and it's never like a Jerry Maguire, I quit. Today's the day. I mean, generally speaking, it's not. You've probably been thinking about it for a while. You've been processing, you've been praying, you've been talking about it, you've been thinking about it. So, you're probably way ready way longer, and you probably have outstayed the time that you actually need to be there most times when it comes to most folks. But generally
Yeah.
speaking, we all know the reason people don't make the move, it's fear is
Mhm.
always the thing guiding. And so there's also a place of like wisdom. There's critical thinking, strategic thinking, calculated risk taking. Those are all parts to play in it. But like I said, like nothing ever goes to plan. So you have to just be willing and ready to know like this may or may not work. But one of the big things that Jenny and I like to say, James, is we like to say, which what if are we willing to live with? And we have to ask ourselves that question. And for us, it was like, what if we never take the jump? What if we just stayed in this job and kept doing this the rest of our life? Would we always wonder, what if? What if we would have taken that ride? And so we don't ever have to wonder what was going to happen with us taking that jump. That's a what if. And us saying, okay, now I can look back and say, well, what if I would have stayed there? I think it
Yeah.
would have been great, but I would have never known the life on this side over here. So there's a lot of risk involved, and we can get into some more of the details of the journey. But I just say for me and for anyone listening, you just got to know it's not going to go the way you think it's going to go. There's
Yeah.
always going to be twists and turns. You have to be resilient. You have to keep kind of reinventing yourself, rediscovering yourself. We even talked before we got on the call here. I mean, there's always a pivot or two involved when you're trying to figure it out. You think you have mapped the whole thing before you actually make the jump. And generally speaking, it's going to probably change. I mean, you of all people know that as well, right? Am I right?
Looking back now, because I know you have, and a lot has changed
Sure.
in a short period of time for you
Very
too.
short. Yeah. No.
What do you wish you would have known when you stepped out? Now you look at it today.
Oh man, I don't know. I think there's so it's weird. There's a level of how do I say this? There's a level of boldness and maybe kind of borderline arrogance you have to kind of have to go, I'm going to do this. Because you just have to believe, you have to have hope the thing you're going to step into is going to work, or you're crushed from day one. But I think there's a level, if I would have walked in with a little bit more of like, there's that fine line of learner, teachability, humility, seeking guidance and help from people, and really even knowing what I like, where I wanted to go, and to leverage my strengths better. I think, you just go, I think I want to go here, and you don't know, and you have to. And Reid Hoffman of LinkedIn says that with a startup or anything endeavor you're doing, it's like you're building the airplane while you're falling out of the sky. And you start to. What happens is, especially if you have like you have a large amount of money that you go, okay, cool. I've got this, I'm cashing my 401k, or I've got a big amount of money with this emergency fund. I've at least got 6 months, to kind of get this up off the ground or whatever. I would just say you actually need like 3 years of money if you're going to do something like that, because that 6 months is going to come quick. And it's a little bit of like a false security blanket, because you're like, oh, okay, cool. I can dream, I can think, I could, it's just like, no. Get out there, execute, and very quickly be able to pivot and start to decide, okay, that's not it. That's not it. I'm going to try this. Try it. But I mean, we get so obsessed with the idea of like a vision statement and all the things. So it's just like, but you're like, no. Like, you got to get to the thing as quick as possible. That's going to hopefully at least produce some money that gives you a longer runway, because that money has the potential to run out very quickly. And then here's what happens when the thing that you're building is the thing that you're hopeful can make you the money. You start to make silly, stupid decisions because that thing has to make you money right now. So you will compromise, and maybe you did find the thing that you're supposed to do. You will, if you're a freelance agency, you're doing videos, you're like, why am I doing a cat video for YouTube for this person, this lady, the cat lady? I don't know. They're going to pay the bills. Is this part of my vision? And then there's also that just hustle factor. You're like, look, this is going to suck. And you may have to just Uber and do part-time jobs and do all the other things to see this vision come to life. And if you can be humble enough to do that and not be like, well, I've already made it in my life to this particular level, then you can, I think that, and you're just willing to admit when you're wrong and be able to move quickly. Those are just some pieces, I think, man, that I think understanding that the money's going to move a whole lot faster. You're going to make stupid decisions, because you're hopeful that the money that will compromise the vision you have, because the tighter the money thing gets around your neck, the air gets cut off. You start to panic. You start to do silly decisions. Everyone around you stress, especially if you're like a sole provider. And it's like, yeah, you may have your great vision, but you have to have some humility to be able to make a call when you're supposed to pivot, and also make a call when you're supposed to go, I just got to bring in some money. I may be close, and then just continuously, again, self-awareness to the entire thing, and being able to have honest conversations with yourself, and also listen to people around you, and just move as fast as possible.
What's been the toughest internal struggle with your business that you've had to overcome?
I think, part of for me is like my history and story is I grew up in a small town, Indiana. My parents weren't loaded, but I wouldn't say like we were in like poverty. My mom definitely, not college educated, and she struggled most of her life. I always had, cash cars and not a lot of money. And I kind of almost wore like the cheap breakdown car as a badge of honor or whatever. And I'm still sort of shaken out of that analogy, because I go, why when I think about assets and liabilities, but I think part of it is, for me, it's always like, no, if I went for it, I could build that. And in my mind, I have all the confidence in the world. But sometimes when you can go execute, you're going to have to find out if it's a reality or not. So I think one of the things I'll do is I almost find myself sometimes in a little bit of a self-sabotage mode, because I'm an idea guy. I see a shiny thing over here, and I'm starting to see success down a track. And it's like, well, maybe I should start that business. Maybe I should start. But it's just like, no, like lean in and really learn how to embrace success, and not be like, am I supposed to be here? You're a fraud. You're not. They're gonna figure you out or whatever.
Right.
And so I think that's a big thing for me is to don't, have the ideas. They're great. Write them on paper. Let them sit over here. Stay focused. Have blinders on. That's for sure been a weakness of mine in the past. Don't think you're Superman and you can do everything. And then also, again, just don't sabotage yourself when you're finding some traction down the road. Like just stay. Like I always tell people, I'm like, when you think you've figured it out, because I found myself in spots like I'm like, oh, cool, I'm successful over here. Let me start 3 other businesses because I'm such a good business person. And you're like, sometimes past success does not determine future success, especially if you're in a different niche or industry and you've never done it before. And you look up and go, I don't have my hands fully on any wheel, and now it's all struggling. And so I would just say, when you think you've gotten success, when you say I've gotten success, don't start something else. Get even more success in that same area. And when you think you're like, all right, I've really found some steam behind me, then lean in a little bit more, and then just a little bit more, and then maybe you can start something else when you really feel like you conquered it, you found the income stream you want, and you're thriving in that area. But I would say we all kind of jump too quick, either to quit something or to jump to the next thing before we give it a shot. And a lot of that's a lot of self-sabotage, because some of us have just never seen or been around success in our life. We don't know what it looks like.
Hey, let's take a quick break from our interview and talk about something a lot of people are going through right now. There are a lot of people that hit a major slowdown during the COVID crisis. Many of our clients came to us and said sales are down, and we're looking to have to lay people off, possibly sell buildings or other assets. Is there anything we can do to get momentum back in the business? The good news is, the items are actually helping our clients, and we wanted to help other people with the advice that we gave them. So we built a guide you can download for free called Grow Again. What you do in your business when you get hit by the unexpected. We want you, the audience, to have it too. It contains 7 videos that explain the strategies we shared with our clients. It has 4 screen shares that show you exactly how we apply the techniques to our business. And it has 4 worksheets and scripts that you can literally pick up today and use yourself. So go to quirkgrowth.com/growagain and download your copy today. All right, let's get back to the interview.
Yeah, it's funny, man. My wife, I'll come home and, hey, I got in a conversation with so and so today, and they quit their job, and she just looks at me, quit telling people to quit their jobs, stop it. And I'm just like, he wasn't happy, and he had a plan, and he knew what he's supposed to do. He just needed someone to give him a little courage to
Tell him to do it.
jump off the cliff. You might want to call his wife because she's probably pissed. But anyway, no. Yeah, I mean, so a buddy of mine a few years ago, we'd been building a relationship, and he'd started been sharing his vision for a business idea that he had, and I started like talking to him. I'm like, okay, you're married, you're dual incomes, you've got all this money in your 401k, you've got this dream, you're in this job over here that you absolutely hate, it doesn't hardly pay you anything, and you don't have any kids. And I was like running this equation with him. I was like, what is your problem? Like, why are you not doing this thing that you are dreaming of, that you have a business plan and the whole thing put together? Like, what are you doing? And I was just there one day, and I was actually at his office one day, and it was not a good situation. And basically it's like, and I just talked him into quitting, and he quit his job right there. He's like, yeah, I'm quitting. And then he's like, I just quit my job. It's fine. It's fine. Just come here. No. Who's coming with me? I'll come with you. Jerry Maguire. And man, I'm excited that I saw his post 2 days ago. He's 2 years in the anniversary of the business that he started, and he's really successful, and he's happy, and he now has a daughter, and his wife's in a great place. It's those moments for me that I go, they did it. And again, sometimes success doesn't always necessarily end up on the other side.
Sure.
But it's like I said, it's which what if are you willing to live with, and you'll never have to wonder, what if I would have started that business and had a regret? You hear all these people talk about how later on in folks' lives, like well into their, on their close to their deathbed and whatnot, that's the thing they talk about, the regret that they have in their life. And at this point in my life, the only regrets I have is probably eating too many donuts. Probably just slow down there. Other than that, I'm trying, man. I'm working on it.
It's so much easier now that you're a CEO, right? You got a big team. Life is a breeze.
Oh man.
Yeah. I know that this past year a lot has changed in the business for Startup Camp itself.
Yep.
But these past few months, or this past half year, has been huge for you guys. Tell me what it's like being CEO now, looking back, or what some of that's looked like this past year.
Yeah, I mean, when we talked about before, I think, if you're building any kind of business or starting, there's always a pivot that comes. And I think we realize, like, you got to follow the numbers. Eventually, there's that fine line between this, the leader is kind of the crazy person. It's like, we can do this. And you keep you're the one that has to like lead the charge and storm into but eventually it's like, nah, we can't do this. We need to do something different. And so we made a decision to pivot and jump into a world that, obviously I'd learned a lot about. I was an entrepreneur and a founder, but the world of angel investing was so new to me, but it was so fascinating. There's a lot of new laws and rules that have opened up. And so we decided to pivot into the world of angel investing. I see the value in investing in the entrepreneur versus starting just one business. And so it's kind of a diversification play. It's just a lot of fun. But all that to say is there's so much you have to learn on your own, and then your team is building, and then you're trying to figure out the messaging and marketing and then the product that you're going to fulfill to the customer. Like, what is it that they actually want, and your trial and error and all that. And so, and I think the thing you always have to think about is like, hey, this isn't going to happen overnight. I don't know what you think is going to happen, but like, this is a long process. And, don't get discouraged if you only made $500 or $1,000 today. Congratulations, you made $5. There's somebody who wanted what you made again today. And then hopefully, if you start to get better at what you're doing, there's more people the next day and the day after that want what you have and want to be a part of what you're building. I think that's always just the sign, if you're building something that's actually viable, is that people will continue to give you their hard-earned money. And so for us, and it was like team members and trying to educate people on angel investing, what they need to do, and who needs to find what in their lanes. And then you're always managing emotions. Somebody's either moving or having a baby, or sad and they're in quarantine, or I always tell people, like, look, I can teach someone how to execute a task, but it's here and here. that if you can help them like navigate these two things and help them be in a place where they've got clarity, got some freedom there, and they're like at peace, then you watch what they can do when it comes to work. And not only that, but not only comes to work, but like the amount of loyalty that they have when you actually know them and care about them, and you're not just plugging them into some hole, but you're trying to find the thing that they're really good at and that you really suck at, or most other people on your team suck at, but they're so good at it, and you can champion that and lift them up. The output, the productivity, and a happy team member, it's going to go through the roof. So it's just always, I mean, I think I've talked to you about this before. I'm always doing a pulse check just on my team, just like always like trying, like individually, I'll pop off a phone call. Hey man, how you doing? It's more of like an impromptu versus like, let's schedule a meeting and see how you're doing. It's more like, hey, real quick. And I know I'm probably the worst, the people who love structure and schedule, because I think when you have those conversations, like, well, I'm kind of glad you asked. People aren't like, they haven't been crafting in their mind. So I need to say it this way. Usually just get a real, open, honest conversation. And that's, those are generally the best ones.
So what would you say in the midst of everything going on for a business owner? What kind of advice would you give?
Well, I think it depends on the business, right? I mean, you know, some businesses, like, how do I say this? COVID's like a jackpot for them. They're like, sweet, we were built for this. Let's go. You know, and they can leverage it really well. But, you know, I have a friend who has a ride sharing company, and right in the middle of it, and he's just like, well, no one's moving. I was like, there are people who are moving to hospitals to work. I was like, you need to be the exclusive ride share provider for all the frontline workers, and people could be more than willing to donate to that to pay for people's rides. And you can continue to get your name out there. You can do meals, you can do all the things. And so I think the thing it depends on if you got like this intuitive gene. I mean, I had a team member, like, I'm highly intuitive on the Myers-Briggs. I mean, intuition is probably a blessing and a curse of mine. I once had a buddy. I was like, it's so stupid, but like, I was like, dude, I think your wife's pregnant. He's like, what? Why do you say that? I was like, she's got pregnancy hair, bro. Like, her hair's glowing. And like, it's a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
And he was like, really? What? And she was like, it was like, nobody even, like, it wasn't even a thing. And I was just like, oh my God, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Like, you know, I'll be asking people questions like, did you know? And I'm like, I didn't even ask you that. And they're like, how did you? And I'm like, oh crap. So all that to say is, like, when it comes to business, there's a level of intuition and kind of, I love the term seeing around the corner. But if you're not wired that way, there's a lot of like things you can look at, like history, what happens in this particular niche, in previous downturns, like what kind of came out on the other side. What am I, you know, one of the things you and I talked about earlier, James, was, you know, this is something I've recently, I think it's called Raise the Game. It's a book I'm listening to on Audible, but I heard a great point. Like, someone will say, just sales, man. You just got to get sales. And I would have probably, before I heard this, said, yeah, it's just all about sales. You got to figure out what makes sales. But what I would say, no matter what business you're in the middle of COVID, what I would say is that you need to first, if you want sales, you have to backtrack one, and you have to communicate well. And if you want to communicate well, you need to listen. And so if you listen to your customers, to the people who aren't buying or are buying, then you can craft the narrative and the message to better communicate to your potential buyers, which will ultimately turn into revenue and money and hopefully the success you want to see. So in this, I don't think that's COVID or wherever. I mean, if you're listening, you can posture yourself as a learner and a listener, and then somehow package that together in a message that makes sense and it's clear and it's simple to understand, then that will produce money as well. So just look at your messaging and look at how you're listening and who you're listening to. And maybe pivot that if you're not listening to the right people or the right outputs or inputs, I guess. Really, my big prayer and focus is like, okay, you know, I turned 40 in February, which is cool. I'm excited about it. But, you know, if I am indeed halfway or more than halfway, I really want to think about the long game in my life. You know, there's a book I read many years ago called The Millionaire Mindset. And I might have talked to you about this before, James. It's like, the guy was really simple. idea, but it was really good. He said, really poor people think day to day. Poor people think, week to week. Middle class people think month to month. How am I going to pay my bills this month? How am I going to, I got a month to month, right? And then rich people think year to year. They're really planning this year and maybe next year. And the extremely wealthy, the ones who are very rich, think decade to decade. And I think you can apply that to finances and money, but I think you can also apply that in just like the impact and the difference you want to make in the world. So for me, I'm trying to think about the next 4 decades and go, okay, God, you've given me all these people that I've gotten the opportunity to influence, directly, privately. There's some influence I'm getting that you're kind of opening to the outside world that, it's kind of scary. I think that's the thing. Another thing for me is like, for the longest time, I was like, put me on a stage and watch me dance, and I think I've finally been worked out of me that has nothing to do, going on MTV and all the things like that was filling some kind of silly insecurity, but at the same time getting to have the time of my life. But now I just realize it's more about leveraging the gifts God's given me for the mission that's in front of me. And so as much as I'm probably now more than ever like, nah, it's okay, I don't need to go out there and do all that. The influence and the opportunities are probably going to come a whole lot more. And so I'm just trying to focus on the long game and go, what's my long game? And the question I would ask for everybody who's watching here is like, ask yourself that same question. What is your long game? If somebody said, what's your long game? Can you accurately describe why you're doing the thing that you're doing today and how the outcome of that is going to play out years from now? If you're 27, you're like, I don't know, my long game is figure out if I want to be a banker. And then it's just like, I want to challenge you to think about your long game. Like, what is the story that you want to be told of you? And when I look back on the last 39 years, 40 years of my life, I look up and say my life's work up to this point has been loving my wife, loving my kids, hopefully serving Jesus, well. And then also these people that God's put in my life. And so I look up and go, okay, what can I learn from that? And how can I take that into the next 40 years of my life and make the impact that I want to be made, that I want made is when I go. I kind of hope at one point I'd kind of coined the phrase, people say, like, when I think about my funeral, like, I want people to say that, like, when Chris was around me, he didn't let me stay the same. He challenged me to change for the better, not just because for change's sake, but to change, to become the person that maybe I'm afraid to become or to step into or whatever it is. And so yeah, I'm focused right now. You talk about a decade. I'm focused on the long game. Where probably a decade ago, I was focused on me and success and climbing some kind of ladder and proving to the world that I'm a big deal or whatever. But now it's just like, it's all about the long game, man. Long answer, but I hope that.
No, that's incredible. I love that because just recently, me and my wife went through, it was a live stream for an entire day, like 10 to 4 with Donald Miller doing a life plan. And we just completely shaped first we had to write our obituary, right? For our when we died. And, I've heard of those exercises before. I'm like, that's so silly. That's so stupid. It's so silly. But then we really started making it important, and we started writing it out, and then started shaping what our kids are going to say about us and our families and the people, and then we're just like in tears thinking about this massive picture that we really want. And then we do this 10-year plan, right? We go, okay, let's look at 10 years from now, think big and audacious, and what do we want to do? And okay, cool, let's go back 5 years, and then 1 year. And you look at the 1 year and you're like, I'm not doing enough today to do that. I'm literally behind. Sure. And, but I love that because we actually read that now. I have it printed off as a part of my daily focus deal.
That's cool.
Part of my devotional. And I read the obituary and our 10-year plan every morning. That's cool. And it's actually been life-changing over the past few weeks because when I write down my goals for the day and what I'm going to do, I'm shaping them around what's most important, not about what's got to get done for the day, because it's got to get done, right? Like those things will get done, but this is what's important. Right. And I think that's huge. I mean, if we close out with that, that's huge. So I think just like you're saying, long game, looking to the future, what's your life really going to look like?
Right.
Stop worrying about today or tomorrow.
Sure.
It'll take care of itself. So what would be your challenge to everyone watching? We have entrepreneurs, we've got business owners, executives, people in big seats, and trying to figure out also big moves in their life. So what would your big challenge be as we kind of close this out to them?
Oh man. I would just say work with James. That's it. Just hire James, hire Quirk.
You'll get that check. Don't worry. Don't worry.
Yeah, just affiliate link, please. So drop the affiliate link right now. Thank you. Oh man. No, I mean, look, my wife and I, when we started off, when we took the jump, we didn't fully know what the journey was going to look like, but we named our company One Life, because the whole idea is that like you have one life, and this is something I love to tell people when they're like wrestling with the decision and what should I do and all the things. And so it's a real kind of fun. This happened to me years ago, and I didn't know I was going to go this way with it, but we'll see. Hopefully this is the big crescendo that you're hopeful for.
I just thought it was funny because we've always done a lot of those.
I had this team member one time, and he was really wrestling with the decision. He didn't know what he was supposed to do. Was he supposed to, take this move over here or stay right where he was, and all the things. And so many times, like people watching here probably everyone has a big decision to make, right? They all have a huge decision to make. It's like, should we move? Should I take that job? Should we sell the car? Should we go to what? All the things. And so what happens is we have the emotions that are just wrapped up in all of it. And it's so hard to even see, like we just can't see clearly. And so the question, the exercise I like to do is like, take that thing that you've got, that real, like, and just play it out in your head, like the anxiety you've had, all the feelings. And now what I want you to do is I want you to imagine, and this works really well for those who have children. But at the time when I shared this with this guy, he didn't have a kid. He was a single dude. And I said to him, hey, if your kid came to you, say 25 years from now, 30 years from now, your son, your kids are, what, five and three. Yeah. So let's say in 25 years, your son comes to you and he says, Dad, I've got this situation. And he begins to unpack the exact same situation, anxiety, feelings, all of the things that you're feeling in this exact same moment. And then he looks at you and says, what should I do? What should I do? And usually within about 5 seconds, people go, well, I would tell my kid to do this, 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 and this. And you're like, all right, well, why would you do that? Well, because I love him and I want the best for him. This is the advice I would give him. And they asked me for the advice. And it's like, okay, well, guess what? I think you just discovered the steps that you need to take to make the next move in your life. And so, I don't know if that's helpful for anybody, but I think sometimes we get so paralyzed by fear and by our emotions and all the things. And so we just need to step back out and go like, look, you can do this. You know the answer. You know what's inside of you. You know what you need to do. If it's James or myself, whoever, lend you some courage. We've walked before you, and you're going to be okay. Look, don't do something dumb. Don't do something silly. Be calculated with the decisions you make, but just know like you're going to mess up and you're going to have victories, and it's all about the journey. It really is. It's 100% about the journey. Just don't live with that what if, that, man, you're going to regret and be down in your life and go, man, I wish I would have tried this or that. There's a wish I would have. Write on that list and then go, how do I check these boxes? What realistically do I need to check? And then live the life that you're born to live, man. That's it. Just don't be afraid. Don't be fearful. That's it.
Every single week when we close it out, we do a little dance. So you want to join me?
Bro, I would love to join you.
All right, here we go. And here it is.
I had a buddy in college who dance like this. The worst move ever. What I got.
Well, that was an awesome episode with Chris. Don't you think, James?
Oh yeah, man. I love having Chris hang out with us to learn from, for sure.
Yeah, the thing that totally blew my mind was when he was talking about doing the 1 week versus 1 year versus 1 decade. Like, I don't know about you, but I don't typically think in decades. Do you?
No. I mean, I've done an exercise where it's made me kind of stretch that far before, but not to where you think in decades. Like I'm so caught up in the year to year, or even like more of like a 3 to 5 year. So that really puts a good perspective on kind of our approach to the future.
Yep. Well, that's all for today. We want to keep helping as many people as possible clarify their message and connect to their purpose. So hit that subscribe button below and whatever notification bell that you might be near. And then, come back next week and we're going to have another amazing guest for you.
No, that's awesome, Jake. Yeah, thanks for joining us on Clarity and Purpose, where we believe when a business leader aligns their team with their message, they become unstoppable.
Deal.